Hey, Sanders, Anthony Rose. It is now part 3 of West Coast Swing Secrets. Now, this is where we finally get to the sugar pushes. Now, notice I didn't say sugar push because there is a sugar push, but there are many sugar pushes, and that's what we're covering today. This is going to be a unique way to look at it. Now, if you're brand new here at the channel, we post all of the country dances. West Coast Swing, we do two-step, waltz, polka, little line dance, little chicken dance, and all that stuff. But you'll notice a little button down here and it says subscribe. Now, if you click that button, then you become an X dancer and you'll know when all the awesome stuff happens here on the channel. So we're gonna demonstrate the sugar pushes and then we'll break them down. All right, guys, let's talk about the sugar push. Now, a lot of people teach the sugar push as the basic step of West Coast Swing. And as we've talked about in the previous videos, it is not, but it is an important one to learn. Yeah. Now, it's a little different than the other patterns. Most of the other patterns that we do in West Coast Swing start her over here, and she goes to the other side. We did the basic like side passes and we did the rolling passes, right? So she starts on one side, goes to the other, and then she goes back. Now the sugar push is different because I don't let her do that. I start her moving over there and then I stop her and send her back from whence she came, right? So we have 1, 2, 3, and 4, 5, and 6. Now, just like all the other things we've done in this series, this is a category of things. You have the sugar push, which is what we just did, and there's different ways to do it. So we'll show you that sugar push and then some other ways you can do that same thing. So again, basic sugar push is she comes towards me and I say, no, go back over there. But there's a lot of different ways you can do that. You can do a push tuck. You can do it with the opposite hand. I can even like send her in for turns and send her back. But the whole idea is she starts over there. I start sending her over there. I just don't let her do that and send her back.
Big body, so I have no choice.
So let's break down the basic sugar push. Guys, I'm gonna go ahead and tell you now, if this is the first video of this series, you found this is not the best place to start, click that link right there. That'll take you through the whole playlist. It kind of goes in a chronological order, but I'm just kind of briefly rehash some of the stuff we talked about before. So she starts on that side of the slot, she goes to that side of the slot, and most all things. So she's got this circle right there, and then she has a line that connects her to the other circle. That is the structure of everything in West Coast Swing. She starts over there, she goes to the other side, and I kind of go side to side where I've got circle here, and circle there. Now, the sugar push, the reason why we don't teach this as the basic is because that whole structure is like out the window. She doesn't go from that spot to that spot. So what happens is a lot of times people teach the sugar push as the basic, and they're teaching them something that actually isn't the structure of West Coast Swing. And so then when you get into the structure of West Coast Swing, it's just kind of confusing, all right? What happens, and with this and with all patterns, is we break everything down into sections of 2 beats of music, all right? We talked about this before, but in a 6-count pattern, like we did the stuff we did before, she has, for the first 2 beats, she comes towards me, then you have the variation, which is something happens, and then you have an anchor. That is the 6-count structure of all 6-count patterns. The first 2 counts, she comes towards me. The middle 2 counts, something happens, and the third 2 counts, she triple steps in place, doesn't go anywhere, right? The sugar push is exactly the same. So if she's here for the first 2 counts, what happens is she comes towards me. So she just does walk, walk. Then we have the something happens. So there's a many different footwork variations and things that you can do here. I'm just gonna go vanilla, vanilla, vanilla because it really doesn't really matter, right? So what we can do here, she comes towards me for 3, she replaces for and she steps back away from me for 4. So that is the middle 2 counts. So again, what you have is she comes towards me, then she goes back, and then we have section 3, which is that triple in place. Now, if you look at the other patterns we've done, like a side pass, she comes towards me, then she passes me, then we have an anchor. Now, sugar push still has section 1 and 3 still the same. She comes towards me, something happens, which means I compress the sender back, and then we have the anchor in place. So that middle 2 counts is really the only thing that's different here. Now, the one thing that we got to talk about here before we get into, we're going to show you a bunch of different ways to do this, a bunch of different variations and stuff, but we've got to talk about that middle section because that's the only thing that's different between this and other things. Here's what we're going to talk about. So some people use the example of A's and V's, like letter A and letter V, okay? That's one way to look at it. It's not always the same thing, but if we think about the letter V, we're leaning away from each other, and if we're thinking about the letter A, we're compressed into each other. What's going to happen at the end of every pattern, we have 5 and 6, we have this stretch that happens, but when she comes in, we get into the letter A because we're kind of compressed into each other just a little bit. Yep. So what's happening here is if she's in that circle and she sees this magical spot over here, she's trying to get there and she's still trying to move, and I just compress and say, hey, we're not doing that, okay? So if she comes towards me, she's still trying to get over there. She's still trying to get over there, lady. And it's like, oh no, we're compressing you in and we're not letting you do that. Okay, so here's your footwork. Do you guys know that we're on tour right now? Like literally on tour, going around the country, teaching workshops. We call it the two-step tour.
Yes.
But I bet you that we have a location near you. If you click that link right there, that'll take you to where we're gonna be at. We would love to see you in person. So the first 2 counts are walk, walk. She's walking towards me and I'm walking back. Now, I am letting her close the gap a little bit because she does need to be a little bit closer. My steps are not as big as hers. Then I absorb her in as she steps slightly forward, as I step slightly back for 3. We replace for and I send her away from me for count 4. I step forward, she steps back. Then we just do that anchor in place again. So again, that's 1, 2, 3, and 4, 5, and 6. So let's talk about what we do with our hands. Usually when we start this, I'm usually gonna start with my left hand, Rose's right hand, and then we're gonna pick up into 2 hands. And usually we're gonna do that on count 2. So if I bring her towards me for 1, I'm gonna ask for that hand and pick it up on 2. I'm gonna keep both hands for 3 and when I send her away for 4, I'm back to 1 hand, and then we have that anchor in place with 1 hand. So again, it's 1 hand, 1, there's 2 hands, 3 and 1 hand, 5 and 6, okay? So now, again, there's more than one way to do this. Some people do the footwork a little bit different. It doesn't really matter. Those are personal styles. And one thing I can promise you, not just in this thing, but in all things, especially in West Coast Swing, whatever the norm or style is today, wait a year or so. It's gonna be something completely different.
Ever evolving. It's a living dance, and there's so many things that you can do with it. That's what makes it so fun. But this is the vanilla basics. Get to know this, and then you can play and stylize however you want.
Style changes, physics does. Okay?
Exactly.
Doesn't change. Okay, so the core structure of 3 sections, that's always been there. It will always be there, I hope, unless it just becomes a completely different dance. But the styles change, footwork changes, preference change. And if you're watching this video, right now it's 2021, if you're watching this video in 2031,
we're a hologram at that point, it will probably change.
In 2031, the concepts will still be the same, but the style might be different, okay? So again, we have 1, 2, 3, and 4, 5, and 6. Now to get an idea of the way this compression works, the way that we teach this is she's trying to assume that she's going from that spot to that spot, and she's always assuming that. So the way that I teach this to get a feel for this, if you're teaching this to a follower and you want her to feel this and not see it, what I do is I tell her to close her eyes, and we're gonna dance 3 regular side passes in a row. That's where she does go to the other side. So this is 1. All right, she still got her eyes closed. All right, now we're doing number 2. All right, and now we're doing number 3. And she didn't expect that, right? Because her assumption is that she's actually going to the other side. And since she was expecting to go to the other side, she's gonna feel that compression, not see it, not know it, not have some psychic ability of that's what's happening. You're going to actually physically compress with your partner because she's still trying to get over there.
Right, and I did want to talk about the followers connection here. A lot of times, especially with beginners, when they come in, they kind of let this come out and they kind of do like a chest bump action. Make sure that you're keeping a good amount of tone in the arm, a good amount of compression in there, and then send yourself away from there.
I kind of feel like I just won the game-winning touchdown at the Super Bowl.
You don't want to mess with me. I could take you.
So yeah, so what the basic general rule of thumb is don't let your elbows go past your back, right? So keep them a little bit out in front. So
that way he can send you.
Now again, like we told you guys, the sugar push is a category of things. I'm just going to briefly show you a couple of these things, but the concept is I bring her towards me, I send her back, and then she anchors. 3 sections. So you have I bring her towards me, I send her back, and then we anchor. Now that is the same concept if we did what's called a push tuck, which now I'm gonna bring the left hand up. We go, come towards me, I send you back, beginning a turn, and then we anchor in place. The motion for me is, my footwork is exactly the same. Her footwork just has a turn, but is essentially the footwork, the feet still land in the same spots, right? So she comes towards me, 1, 2, 3, and 4, 5, and 6. Now, obviously, like I showed you guys earlier, you can do this with the opposite hand. So instead of with my left hand, I can do the same thing with my right. 1, 2, 3, and 4, 5, and 6. So the idea is she comes to the spot and it's send her back. Now from that you can be creative, you can create a lot of different things, but this is a category of motion and that is the core. So like I literally could send her to me and send her in for a turn and then send her back. There's infinite number of ways to do this. If we were to get in this position, I could do it off my back as a 1, 2, 3, and send her back with my back and anchor in place, right? So that is a category of things. So here's what we want to do now. We want to show you a lot of these different variations to music so you can see what they look like.
Yeah.
Now the next video in this series is the whip patterns. This is your first introduction to an 8-count pattern, and the whips are a core element of West Coast Swing.
Huge.
Once you get into the whips, it's going to take about probably 50% of the things you do will be 8-count patterns. The other 50% will just be the stuff that we've done.
Right.
So you don't want to miss the next video, okay? So the whips is your first introduction to that. So we'll demonstrate this stuff to music, and then we'll see you guys next time. All right, guys, congratulations on finishing the Sugar Push.
So proud.
Now we're moving on to the whip patterns. Now click that link right there. That's the next step in the series. Or if you'd like to check us out on xdance.com, click that link.